Hello Comms 363 students. This video is going to be focusing on the rhetorical context section of individual report A. And I'm going to go through some important things from the assignment instructions and also two samples of sections that talk about context. One sample that's a little better than the other. So first of all, with your assignment instructions that we're looking at right now, and I do recommend looking at this video on a desktop computer or a laptop where you can actually see the text size. You could pause now and then if you would like to read it in more detail when we get to the samples. So this section here, I'd like to highlight the second paragraph, discuss how. That one there gives you some important keys about the fact that you are going to be reasoning about the constraints and opportunities for the organizational rhetor. That is your overall goal. And the challenge for this context section is that people often go off topic to talk about what could be better on the website, what could be improved, what's wrong with the current website, those kinds of things. So that is going to be considered off topic for this section. For this text section, we're only looking at hypotheticals, what may or has influenced the communication choices. It's about the potential strategic communication that needs to occur or would help the website given the knowledge that you're finding out about their rhetorical situation. I do give you the key points to cover, and I say that you don't have to cover them in this order. I've got the rhetor, the audiences, and the purposes, as well as a smaller point about Kairos. Now, what I don't want you to do is to treat these things as if you have to cover all of the suggestions I have here. So for example, when this sentence here is go beyond the obvious features, consider this, consider that, realize it says at the end, select what's relevant. So please do not include factoids. I like to call them factoids when they're just facts that are just piled up in a corner showing me that, oh wow, I found some facts. Big deal, right? So if you tell me what the size of the organization is, but you don't tell me that that has any importance to an argument about the context and its influence on the website's communication, then that information is off topic and it's data that is not being used. It's not unanalyzed data. So be very careful with this type of statement. I'm giving you ideas, but do not include everything. You must be selective of only the best data that proves your argument. Go through the sidebar. It's important to know how you are contributing to your whole group by doing this context section, how you're increasing the quality of your final report. And it talks here about how it helps the introduction and how it might help the recommendation section. But realize that your context section will not be copied verbatim into any section of the final report. It is more like a fundamental preliminary step and a background knowledge that affects all of the evaluations that you make about the website. So it's behind the scenes, it's background to your final report, and it ends up supporting the arguments that you make. It also, within your report A, as you're writing report A, it is the first thing in the major sections, right? And it comes before this one, the rhetorical content. And so when you come to the content analysis, you will be hopefully referring back to key elements of the content or context that you learned, because otherwise your evaluations of the content, it seems like there might be two different essays or two different reports going on here. So the best written report A will have a content section that reminds us now and then of key relevant issues of context that have aided you in your analysis of the quality of what you see on their site. Okay, so now we're going to go into some samples that show you how students have written context sections. Okay, here's one. Oh, I don't know. To go up, sorry. Let's go quickly to the context section. Okay, so this context section, the student has chosen to divide it into two sections called challenges and opportunities. I'm not going to talk about all the formatting and probably issues with spelling, etc. But we're just going to focus on how they've presented their argument. Notice how they've worded this claim. One challenge facing their website, well, I'd probably say facing the rhetor, since that's how I've framed the question in the content or the instructions. Okay, facing the rhetor. You've got the issue of their the medium and what medium is more appropriate to maintain donations to the organization. That seems like a really valid concern. I mean, you think about putting yourself in the Trout Unlimited Canada in their shoes, and you can imagine them thinking, now how do I use the website to its best potential to attract donations? How might I even use it in concert with things like my Facebook page? Okay, how is it different from my Instagram or Facebook, etc.? And so the first issue that they go into is the fact that to what degree do they rely on donations? So you can see that their data from Grandy 2013 is a source that provides information about the likely types and sources of funding for the Trout Unlimited Canada. And so the person has used that data to make some reasoning about how necessary it is for donors. Once they've gotten that out of the way and shown that they understand their economic base, they have to say something about it beyond just economics. They have to talk about how this is an implication for the communication of the website. So they do that now with this sentence called the challenge now. Okay, the challenge now for the website is to be able to convince its viewers, etc. And here the analysis is about donating still, so we're not changing topics. That's a good thing. We also have a little bit of direct stakeholders being characterized in this analysis sentence. So even though the opening sentence is about the goals of the organization and their need for donations, we're learning a little bit about who the student thinks the audiences include and who might wish to donate. So those are some really good features. And we'll move on. Another challenge, this one here, is people who believe there are ulterior motives behind organizations like the Trout Unlimited Canada. And the source that they found here was probably found through a Google search to find out who has cited Trout Unlimited Canada. And they found this very polemic argument by a person who's very against a certain type of environmentalism in Canada. And they found that this is good evidence to show that some people are antagonistic to organizations like this, and that they have particular opinions about the organization, and that those opinions could be out there on the internet influencing other people. And this is valid because it shows that there's people who have other opinions out there. It's also not so good because I don't know yet what this student thinks the target audience is for the website. We've learned that there might be potential stakeholders and donors in this paragraph, and we know that there might be people who are antagonistic, but we also know from our handbook that there's different types and categories of audience, and the most important category is target audience. Who are they targeting? To what degree, I would like to know from the student, to what degree does the website have to be aware of antagonistic people? Or is it just, not to offend them and not to ruffle their feathers enough to create, let's say, an open angry debate between Mr. K or Ms. K and themselves. So moving into the analysis after they present this data, articles that are critical of the merits can create a group of audience. Okay, wording a bit off, but the ideas underlying here are good. It's that this article is out there and it might be stirring up discontent. Then it talks about, well, what does this mean for the communication of the website? This is a good way to end your arguments. Bring it back to communication strategies. And notice this is using the word may, right? And it's not talking about giving advice about what should be done. It may. And so remember that recommendations are usually worded as should or ought, and recommendations should only belong in recommendations sections, so that when a person is looking at your document, they know where to find certain types of arguments. Here is not the place to put a recommendation about how they should change a particular page or what they need to say, or right, a specific recommendation from you would be off topic for this section. But here you're talking about generic strategies and directions for the communication on their website. And so, you know, it doesn't go into particular positive messages. That's good. It's not making particular recommendations about types of positive messages and where they should go, right? It's just saying, oh yeah, putting some positive messages could be useful too, logically, you know, keep the antagonism low. And here's another, the strategic goal for the communication might be to look at ways to address any possible source of external criticism. So this doesn't give any practical recommendations. It's about, you should think about this. This could be an important influence on your website decision making for communicating. Okay. I've colored that one in red. That's another claim. And here is a Kairos claim. The time is right. And it's talking about recent trends in its data. So this doesn't have to be as long. I believe that you could possibly cover the main content requirements for this by combining certain things in paragraphs, and maybe, you know, being very, notice how selective they are of the data. They're not just piling on factoids. So that's a good example. I'm going to briefly go to a negative example now. This one goes through, and here's nothing against doing it this way: organization, audiences, situation. Okay, so they've decided to do a very traditional categorization, which would have worked fine, and so I do recommend that that's one easy way to categorize it. And of course, please try to avoid stacked headings. This is what I call a stacked heading. Put at least one sentence between each level of heading. Right here you could say something about what's covered within this section, at least to give an overview. So we have the first claim. The purpose is to inform, collect donations, and get volunteers. The problem with that, I think, is that it doesn't have enough of a potential to develop. It almost seems like, here are some basic things. I just want to prove that I'm right, that these are the ways. Like, it's not as intriguing as something that has a little bit of a challenge. So if you wanted to talk about the organization, it's better to go beyond the mere factual level and to talk about something that, for your claim, might have an impact on a strategic communication issue or direction. And so we have this student giving data from what they think is a home page, and I think they mean the entire website actually. And they're using it as a tool to show that they are being clear about their mission statement and then they use a secondary source to say, yeah, they've been clear about their purpose. So this has already gone off track, as you can see, because it's talking about evaluating what's already on the website. It's not talking about the situation that they need to be aware of in order to make strategic communication decisions. And it's using a secondary source in order to evaluate and measure the success and the quality of the website. This information would be better placed within your content analysis, where you analyze the content of the website. Here, the discussion of purpose would be, oh, well, what's challenging or what's an opportunity about their purpose, and why is that an important part of their strategy going forward, or it has been for a long time. One of the key things that they need to be aware of, or they have been aware of. Okay, that's where it should go, and it didn't end up going there. And so I did put in the comment here. There's some problems with clarity about what the person means, because they're not really elaborating, they're just taking it for granted in the first part of the paragraph. And then at the end, I've given it an A and an O. So the A means that it doesn't actually, well, here we'd even go with a C comment, meaning that this is off topic, only that it does belong somewhere else. Okay, so instead of a big C period, you see an O, because that means that the content does belong somewhere in this paper, but it's in the wrong section. So that's what that big O period means. And the A means that the argument is going off track. Okay. And the paragraph lacks your own analysis. It just ends with what Guaba says. And sorry, but you can't speak through Guaba. Guaba doesn't speak for you. So even if this was cited in the content area, you'd have to add your own sentence afterwards in order to show that you're using Guaba in your argument, not just speaking through Guaba as if you're a ventriloquist. So here is the next sentence, paragraph. A potential misunderstanding the organization may have is displaying too much information on its website. Okay, and I'm going, oh, we're still in the realm of talking about too much information on the existing website. So we're still off track. It had a little potential there, and thinking, oh good, there could be a problem or a challenge, but now it's critiquing the organization itself, when the focus should be on the challenges that the organization faces, right? So it's not about making the organization look bad. And this paragraph reveals misunderstanding about the fact that you can have a lot of information on a website, you just need to organize it properly. So I put in my comments things like the reasoning is off track and it shows misunderstanding in many ways. So you can see that the major issue with the section is to make sure that you are observing the challenges and opportunities that the context presents for the rhetor given their website communication. What can their website do and be in that given context? How can it function the best for them? What are its constraints? Okay. So this one is actually, I think you do have a topic that might be potentially Kairos situational one. We have here about winter months. So that could potentially be relevant, except that again we're using a secondary source to praise the website, and there's no comment after that from the writer of this sample. And there's some potential to use this final paragraph. Oh, government regulations. Well, I'd like to know what this person, the writer, might think about the government regulations for not-for-profit. How does that affect the content of their website? Do they have to have particular statements? Do they have to, not do particular things? What is the constraints given the fact that they're a charity? What do they have to put on their website? So that's an important kind of constraint, and it's sort of mentioned here, but totally undeveloped, and so it gets a big A period for undeveloped ideas. So, you know, being very careful about not putting things in that you can't develop, and developing your ideas in ways where you can do many things within a section, cover several topics or issues without overwhelming us with data that's unanalyzed or sources that you're merely speaking through and not using as tools. And I hope that's been useful to some degree, and like I said, you can always pause and take a look at the comments I've put in the margin. Not all of them are about the argument that's needed in this section, but all right, so moving on, I look forward to wonderful context sections being presented in Report A. Talk to you later.